Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode, a topic that is, of course, so close to both Ness and my hearts. And we just want to start by sharing a little bit about why it is so important to be able to practice the art of doing nothing. And as you know, we're going to break down the five key tips. There's lots of ways to really help you on this path, things that have helped Ness and I over the years, and that we also, of course, share with our clients, and we see the results with our clients. Ness, why do we want to practice the art of doing nothing?
Great question, Nick. Look, I think our audience will know, and if you're new to the podcast, what we are really passionate about is breaking cycles, and particularly around thriving in business without the burnout. So one of the quickest ways I think, and I see in our clients, to burn out is actually overdoing things, saying yes to everyone, feeling exhausted, having so much on their plates that they're stuck in that busy trap, juggling all the balls in the air and feeling like they're just constantly in chaos. So if all of those things combined lead to burnout, what we want to do is bring a circuit breaker in when you're starting to feel like you're going that way. And in all honesty, hand on heart, I've had periods of time recently where I felt busy, hectic, so much going on. And these 5 tips that we're going to share with you today have helped me to draw it back and to really focus on not getting sucked into the whirlwind of just continually going and going and going until I fall over. So I think that's probably the most important reason. What about for you?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And look, an analogy comes to mind in terms of professional athletes. They don't train and train and train and train and go and hustle. They have to do the training, they have to put the work in, but they also have what they call active recovery. They have rest periods. They have time where their muscles actually need to re-nourish and be able to feel the benefit of all the training. Again, I'd just like to say I'm not a qualified personal trainer or an expert in the sporting space at all. But even with my limited knowledge, it's common sense, isn't it? There needs to be time for the muscles to be able to revitalize, get stronger, and feel the benefit of the work that has been done. Another example is, anybody that's listening that has gone to a yoga class or that knows a little bit about yoga. Some yoga classes are quite challenging, even the simple ones sometimes are. But it's the shavasana, it's the resting corpse pose at the end. And for those of you who don't know, it's the 5 or so minutes at the end of the class where you are literally lying down doing nothing, like you are resting your body. And yoga experts say that 5-10 minutes, whatever it might be, is where all of the benefit of that 40-minute, 60-minute yoga session, where the benefit actually is felt in your body. And so there's a lot of criticism, side note, for yoga classes where they don't allow that to happen, because it's almost like from a point of, for what for? It's a waste of energy. Now, again, that might be controversial, not a yoga expert, but I found that really interesting. And I think that's a great example where we're getting used to maybe thinking of active recovery, resting after physical exercise, after push. But what about our brain? Our brain needs to stop. And when you are in, and I'm in, and we're all in a constant state of cycle, which, let's face it, a lot, if not most of you, if not all of you that are listening, are in this cycle of busy and, as Ness said, all the juggle straight, etc. When does your brain stop? And sleeping doesn't count. Sleeping is a necessity, of course, and it's so important, but that's not the same as doing nothing. And so, especially recently, but this is something Ness and I have been, really passionate about learning more about over the years. And particularly, I think this year, with all the effects of the last few years, and as Ness said, there's been a lot going on for her, for myself, we're really leaning into understanding, what does this concept of nothing mean? Because I feel like, and I'm curious to hear listeners if you have come across this as well, the buzzword is really around doing nothing, or active recovery, or active rest time. And it is this concept of stopping, 100% stopping and doing nothing. And for somebody like myself, who's naturally a go-getter, go, big energy, I find it really challenging. I can definitely lay in the hammock for hours or Netflix and chill. And I find it really good to really lean into that space. But here's the interesting thing: reading a book, watching Netflix, if you're doing anything that activates your brain, it's actually not nothing time. So it's not what we'll call in this episode, perhaps active recovery for our brain. Do you find it really hard to stop as well, Ness? What's your experience around this whole, or perhaps even the beliefs or the mindset to get through around doing nothing?
Oh, absolutely. And I think what happens, and again, high achievers and there's so many things go through my mind around what I need to do at work, outside of work, with my family, life admin, all the things, that sometimes I feel like if I've got a little block of space, even if it's like 15 minutes, I should, talking about shoulding, I should be utilizing this time and doing something. I should be, returning that phone call, sending that email, checking something. Sometimes just end up scrolling on Facebook. And what I think I've discovered in the past about that is it's really difficult to let go of the guilt that comes with, or the pressure that I put on myself about, if I don't do it now, I'm just going to push myself later to do more. But the reality is, in the moments where I have stepped back to do nothing, sometimes the scariest thing about that is the feeling of boredom.
Oh,
and that is a whole nother thing, that those feelings feel so uncomfortable that I want to put things in its place, like eat food or, watch TV or get on Facebook or do something, rather than sit with that discomfort of boredom. I don't think I can get bored in 3 minutes on my own, but if I have an hour, I'm going, what am I going to do for the whole hour? I'm filling it with something.
But it even that thought, that feeling, the awareness that feeling comes up, and recognizing that it's a fear of boredom, or there's lots of reasons, if you're listening or watching, why we want to feel that space. And I've got a book recommendation. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. I'm holding it right now. If you're watching, if you're reading, it's called Do Less, Be More. And it is such an exceptional book. I've read it twice. I will read it many more times. And what's interesting about what you said there, Ness, this isn't actually one of the top 5, but I'm going to add it as a 6th, is that what the authors talk about in this book is that boredom, we need to get comfortable with getting bored, because when we are bored, creative ideas can come. So think about, for all the parents out there or people that have spent any amount of time observing a child, the child gets bored, they want attention, but when they actually move through the boredom, that's when they get creative and they start building the cubby houses or drawing or whatever it might be. And so the authors, there's 2 of them, Martina and Susan, they say, we need to actually step into that space to become bored, because that's where on the other side we can have these ideas. And there's also something in resting the brain that allows the different synapses in the brain to connect. So this is why we get ideas in the shower or maybe on the toilet. We get these ideas when we're not filling and jam-packing our brain with all the stuff that we need to do or think about in all the areas of our life. And again, in this book, they explain a lot around the positive and negative networks and what's happening in the brain, which I'm not going to even go down that path. We're just going to give you the highlights. And if you love this kind of work, we do have a couple of other book recommendations as well. So really important point there, Ness, around boredom. So should we get into the top 5?
Absolutely. Let's go for it.
Great. First one, it's probably not a surprise for those loyal listeners and fans of the work that we do. Get really clear on your boundaries. And the mantra around that is, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? And most of the time, you are saying no to you. Let's be honest. Ness, we've got a framework around setting boundaries. Do you want to quickly run through what that boundary is, just in case people struggle a little bit with setting boundaries?
Absolutely. And look, sometimes accepting no is a full sentence and you don't have to justify, can be part of that problem. But I do find, and this is based on the work done by positivepsychology.com. And what they talk about is you start by defining. So you identified what boundaries do you want to put in place. So for me, when I chose boundaries around work, it was, I only want to work during business hours. I don't want to be available outside of business hours or on weekends. So I'm very clear on that. It's about communicating, say what you need. Whenever we onboard new clients, we're very clear on you can email us at night or on weekends, but we won't get back to you until business hours. And our availability for our laser coaching for all of our clients is similar. It's about keeping it really simple. And what I just said before, don't over-explain. I don't know how many times in the past where I've had to say no to someone and I have this whole big long justification that goes through like 5 minutes. I can't do that because I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And, like it's just no, sorry, I can't do it. So don't over-explain. And then the fourth step in this is setting some consequences. If the boundary is crossed, it helps for people to understand why that boundary is important to you. Because if they don't understand it and you don't enforce it, then I think that, they don't have a consequence for overstepping that boundary. So if a client, for example, is wanting to contact, and this hasn't happened in our business, but in my previous business it did, because I wasn't great at saying why it mattered and why it was so important. But it was really just around, for us, we espouse what it's like to prioritize life. And we have other things outside of our lives, our family, our pets that are really important to us. And we know we're better at business by having that time away from business. So that's the model and an example in a nutshell.
And I love that, because also we can be examples. We can lead by example. If we're setting a boundary around time or hours or whatever in or outside of work, we're actually giving people around us the permission to do the same, regardless of what type of business you're in. Or I find that that's really important, and that's a bit of a ripple effect as well. So number one, set boundaries. I love the don't over explain it. Most of the time people don't really care anyway.
No,
let's be honest. We care more.
Yes.
And we do not have to justify. So love that framework. Number two, so aside from boundaries, be really aware of your language. Be really aware of the subtleties of language. What we tell ourselves becomes our reality. What we focus on, we get more of. And so if we're using really unresourceful language, then we're going to stay stuck in that busy trap. And there's a B word that we invite you to remove from your vocabulary. If you notice, and Ness is going to unveil what this word is in a moment. If you notice that you say this word consistently or a lot or frequently, that is like a fundamental starting point. Ness, drum roll please. What is the B word to remove from the vocabulary?
That would be busy.
Busy.
And, it's really interesting. I've earlier in the year going through a phase where the way I wanted to describe it with so much going on was busy. But I really challenged myself to what's another word, another descriptor of what's happening? Because we do get these seasons, don't we? Seasons where there are things happening in work and life that mean that your attention and time is required in different areas, and that can really stretch us. And for me, it was around replacing the B word that we shall never speak of again, with the word hectic. Because for me, hectic feels like it's about pace, it's about having lots on, but it also, you can't be hectic forever, in my belief. You can be busy forever, but I feel like hectic has an endpoint.
Yeah.
But that's just a little trick I play in my head, and it will depend on your belief. So what other word do you use, Nick, instead of the B word?
Yeah. Look, I think if I just take a step back, I've actually been on this soapbox for a number of years. In fact, I was talking to a leader the other day who said, I noticed that some people in the training said the B word and you didn't pull them up on it. I was so surprised. Maybe because you haven't had that conversation with them yet. Because the thing with the word busy, I'll say it just one more time, is that people use it, as a badge of honor. We know that. We talk about that. But also it's an easy, lazy word. How are you today? What's the most common answer that we'll get? And so it's almost taken away this real connection of actually having a touch point in a conversation with someone, probably because people feel like they don't have time. And it's a habit that's been created that's subconscious and it's not with conscious thought. So I don't think there's a single word to replace it with. It's actually about answering honestly and with maybe a few more words. For example, it could be, there's heaps going on today, or it could be anything around actually what's happening for you. I'm having a great day, or things are really good, or this is specifically what's going on for me at the moment. I'm loving having my dogs in here with me for this recording, or whatever it might be. So be honest. And I think it's even more resourceful to say, look, to be honest, I'm having a bit of a tough day, rather than I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. It's just lost its touch. And some people will argue, and have argued with me before, that, but busy is a really positive word for me. I like it. I like it. Cool. But do you overuse it? That's what we're talking about here. And in 98.99999% of the time, it is overused. So be aware of your language. Point number 2, ban the B word. Say no to the B word. Number 3, third thing to do to introduce and practice the art of nothing is to introduce doing nothing time. Ooh, like it's obvious, but it's not always easy.
No. What do you mean? My brain is scrambling to figure out, what do you mean by nothing time? Nothing?
Do nothing. Just do nothing. Now, you could schedule 5 minutes of doing nothing. So another way to look at this in the book, Do Less, Be More, they call it idle time. And I think what can help with this is putting a bit of structure around it. So, for example, you may have heard us talk about micro moments. Micro moments can be anywhere from 60 seconds to 5 minutes to 10 minutes. It is doing something like going outside and putting your bare feet on the grass and looking up at the sky. If you're not filling your brain with external sources and information, that's doing nothing. Staring at the clouds, I love lying in the hammock and just staring at the clouds. I used to lie in the hammock and feel like I needed to read to make it productive. And then also I realized I'm reading business books 98% of the time. My brain is still getting full. So that's not actually real doing nothing time. I just came out from having lunch. I had a quick lunch. It was 10 minutes, made a salad, sat in the chair outside, looked at the sky and ate my salad. Technically that might not be nothing time, but it is micro moments. So it's this mix of micro moments, doing nothing. Any other ideas on what these micro moments or how you could structure and schedule nothing time in your day, Ness?
Absolutely. And we've done this sometimes with our clients when we're in Zoom meetings or whatever, just 1 minute of box breathing.
Yeah.
Where that is, if you don't know what box breathing is, it's breathing in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, and you just repeat. And it's just amazing to feel the difference that 1 minute can do, especially on those days where everything's coming at you or everything's going wrong, or you're rushing from meeting to meeting, or you can't get a control of your emotions. It's just that opportunity to just blank the mind out. And through the repetition of counting, you're actually distracting your mind away from thinking about all the things you have to do. Because I've never been able to box breathe without concentrating on 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just not something you can do because you're counting, right? So for me, that is a great one. You can do it in the car, you can do it in the bathroom, you can do it sitting at your computer. The world can be going on around you, but nobody knows necessarily what you're doing in that moment.
Yeah, you can even do it in meetings.
Yes. Just something to calm the system, because, often the reason why we need the space to do nothing is because we're feeling like there's so much going on, and there can be a great sense of overwhelm of feelings or emotions or things to do, that's an actual great way that I found to step back. And we see it in our clients when they do it on Zoom.
Yeah. And I think the other thing here is, if doing nothing is too much of a stretch, start with these micro moments. Start with the breathing, and you might do box breathing for 60 seconds and just stay in that state for another 60 seconds. This is a muscle that we need to build on. And if all of this is really new to you, then start simple and always remember the little things become the big things. Tip number 4, Ness, get into nature. Get into nature, my friends. I'm holding up another book for the YouTube watchers. And if you're listening, we'll put these recommendations in the show notes as well. It's called The Nature Fix. And it is such an amazing book. But I think the key message here is we evolutionarily, whoa, that was a made up word. We have evolved with nature, and yet we're so many of us are so disconnected from nature. Research in the book, The Nature Fix, says that 5 hours a month, if we can have 5 hours a month in nature, that will actually help have a positive effect on our mental health, depression, anxiety. And that could be going for walks under trees. Actually, this was a really interesting point that I really remember. If you're walking, don't walk across a field, walk under trees. It could be your neighborhood park walk. It doesn't have to be going away and camping every single month. Even just 5 hours accumulated a month, getting into nature, connecting with nature, going for walks can have a positive effect on our mental health and our physical well-being, of course. And that number increases. And again, there's a lot of research out there, but the key point is, what are you doing? When was the last time you connected to nature? What are you doing to connect to nature? Any thoughts on this one, Ness?
I think that was something that got so many people through lockdowns,
Oh,
because
yeah.
it wasn't just about exercise. I had a friend who was telling me he lived at a house, on a big house, and they had the walking track out the front of their place. And what they actually loved was to grab a cup of tea, him and his wife, and look out the window and just watch the families connecting, riding bikes, going for a walk, playing under the tree, you know, and that was something they really missed once lockdowns were over, because they could sit, it was like watching a TV show for them. It was just beautiful way of seeing people getting outside, getting sunshine and doing something together. So I would imagine, I know, everyone that I spoke to, my friendship and family groups, the highlight of the day was getting out in nature. And if it's raining and miserable, then the mood goes with that, because you can't get outside, and people really, really needed that. So I wonder how many of us are continuing that practice now that the world's opened back up.
Exactly, because even gyms are open again, so people might be going into the gym. There was, I think it's not in the book, I think I'm going to try a quote here, but I think it was around 93% in the US, North America. Most North Americans spend 93% of their day indoors.
Wow.
And there's a percent of that, which is actually that outdoors is walking to and from buildings and cars. So it turns out to be something like 3% actually in nature. Now, again, it might be different here, and we're in Australia, and, you know, we have more of an outdoor sort of lifestyle living, but do we? And how really consciously think, am I getting into nature? Because it's so easy to be stuck inside and not realize it, and going from car to gym. So I really love that. What habits did we create in lockdown, and are we still doing them? Because there really was a benefit there. Also, what you shared, you know, sitting on the cuppa, having a cuppa on the deck and just gazing out, that's an example of doing nothing. It's releasing our brain to just take in what is around us. All right, so number 5, the 5th one. Now, this is a bit of a coded one. I call this put the jug down. And the reason for that is, I don't know about you, Ness. I know I am a serial multitasker. I think I can do a million things at once at the same time. And, you know, I've recently uncovered that I definitely wore that as a badge of honor. And that's a habit I'm doing my best to break. And so when I find that I'm doing too much in one moment, I think put the jug down, because I caught myself the other day drinking my protein shake whilst filling up the water filter, whilst filling up the water jug for the fridge, all of those 3 things. And then in 1 second, like, talk about what can I fit into 15 minutes? I think I had a coaching session or a meeting or something in a few minutes, and I'm like, right, get it done. And I just had this moment of going, oh, I'm doing like literally 3 things at the same time. Wow, go me. Not 5 minutes later, I dropped a glass and broke it. Now, surely there's a connection there. So my reminder, and even Jules says to me, Nikki, do you need to put the jug down, the metaphorical jug down? In other words, how many things are you trying to do in this 1 minute? Could you just do one thing and take that as an opportunity to do it mindfully? Watch the water being filled and be grounded, which is connected to actually another micro moment. But thoughts on that one, Ness? Putting the jug down.
What really comes up for me is putting the jug down means that if you're talking to somebody on the phone, you're not talking to somebody on the phone while scrolling social media, watching TV, looking at your emails, typing. I used to have a manager that I could hear typing at the end of the phone. And I'd be like, I'd just go silent to see how long it would take for her to realize that I wasn't paying attention anymore.
Yes.
So the gift is 2-way here. You put the jug down, you're fully present for the other person.
Yeah.
And you're fully present for that conversation for yourself.
Yeah.
And so that is an amazing gift. And we talk to people about this all the time. People just want to feel validated, acknowledged, special. And the best way we can do that is to be fully present with someone. So this whole concept of doing nothing, I think we can overlay that into different areas of our lives that will actually enrich our experience of life.
Yeah, definitely. So we've gone from doing nothing to doing one thing at a time, focusing and being present. And the theme of all of these things is to slow down, because we're here to break this hustle culture that we've been taught is the way to succeed, which is complete BS. And we do have an episode earlier around the defining what hard work is. We talk a lot about that. If you're curious about this topic, make sure you go and find that episode. So in summary, first thing, friends, is boundaries. If I'm saying yes to this, what am I saying no to? Ban the B word. No more relying on the B word to share what's going on for you in your world. Create some space to do nothing, even if it's just little, maybe micro moments to start with. Get into nature. Doesn't have to be full on camping. There's going to be nature somewhere around you, and put the jug down. In other words, focus on one thing at a time. Ness, we always like to finish up with one actionable tip or step. What do you think needs to be done in terms of breaking this cycle of being too busy, and to flip it to be able to practice this art of doing nothing? One actionable step.
Well, I'd love to challenge our listeners and those viewers that are watching on YouTube to get out into nature. And it's bringing the two together. Find a micro moment that you can go out and do something in nature. Maybe it's putting your feet on the ground, unless you've got bindies in your grass. So that's very Aussie, but
and that's bare feet. Yeah,
that's right.
Obviously, otherwise shoes.
Feet on the grass with prickles doesn't go well. Touching a tree, just doing something. And if the weather is terrible, then I'm going to suggest the box breathing.
Yeah, perfect. Actually, you just reminded me of one final thing I want to share in this book, The Nature Fix. I've been talking for years about touching trees when you go on the walk, and some people look at me like I'm crazy. Well, I would like to report it right here, right now. In this book, there is scientific research that proves, I was so excited when I read this. They said, putting your palms on, I think the example, the research was done on the Tasmanian blue gum tree, 60 seconds of putting your hands on the tree and looking up. So the idea is it brings this sense of awe and wonder. And there's another really good book recommendation, Phosphorescence, by Julia Baird. I'll put it in the show notes. But it's what I've been talking about. 60 seconds, hands on a tree, look up at the sky. It brings this sense of awe and wonder, connects you to nature. So no longer is it just my opinion. There is something in this. It's proven scientifically. So that's pretty exciting.
That's the one action then.
Oh, I love it.
Love to. If you could get a picture of the tree you go and touch and look at for a minute and send it to us on social media, LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, that would be amazing.
That would be so amazing. And what an area to wrap this up. Thanks so much, Ness. And thanks to everybody for listening.
Bye for now.